My son Adam at the Wild Game Dinner went through the line 4 times. He had dessert, then he went back and had meat one more time. And I kind of feel like this sermon is just like Adam going through the Wild Game Dinner, because I've not been happy with this sermon, and I keep finding pieces to tweak it. So hopefully the third one's the charm. In Mark's Gospel, the first 9 chapters, which were in the 9th chapter, all are going up. It's both figurative and a literary style that he's using. That in the first 9 chapters, the Messiah is not mentioned, and it's all building up to the top of this last Sunday of Epiphany, which we call Transfiguration Sunday. And so in Mark's Gospel, there's a peak in the 9th chapter, and then you have the mountaintop experience, and then as they come back down, Mark's Gospel goes back down all the way to the crucifixion. And so the question I think that this Gospel begs, and that the Scriptures today beg, is, what does transfiguration mean for us? What does transforming? What part of our lives is being called to transform? And I looked up last year what the difference between transfigure and transform is, and there's no difference. It's the same thing. To transfigure is to transform, or to be transformed. So a pastor had, these pastors, they get these great ideas. Well, it's just not me. There's other people who do the same goofy stuff that I do. So this pastor had this great idea. He was going to do 40 days of love for Lent. And so he was going to, every week, I still haven't decided whether this is a good idea or not. Maybe next Lent. Every week they were going to do something different, right? So the first week, they were going to write letters to each other about what they meant to each other. So he gets to the end of the service, and one of his parishioners, who he calls a football playing man type, says, "Pastor, I just don't like that idea at all." He said, "I love you, and I love this church, but I'm not into the flowery fufashishi stuff. I don't like the syrupy thing. I'm not into writing letters. I just think this is a terrible idea, and I hate it." I've had that conversation with some of you on some of my ideas. So he goes, and the pastor says, you don't have to do it. It's fine. We're going to do it anyway. So the next Sunday, the guy's waiting in the back of church for him again. And he said, "Pastor, I got to tell you, I got to apologize for what I said to you last Sunday." He said, "Once I got to Wednesday, it all changed." And the pastor said, "Wednesday?" He said, "Wednesday I got my first letter from someone I totally didn't expect to get it from. And it changed me. I started to cry. I keep the letter, I read it 12 times. I keep it right here in my pocket. And I read it every day, and every time I read it, I cry. And the minute after I got done crying the first time, I sat down and I wrote 10 letters right then." And the man had a transformation. Not on the mountaintop, but in the mailbox. Somebody communicating about what that person meant to them. Transformed him. We are called to be transformed. And then as we are transformed, we are called to take that transformation out into the world and help be part of God transforming God's creation. There were 2 women that worked for many years together, and one was older and one was younger. And the younger one finally said to the older woman, "You go to church every Sunday, don't you?" And she said, "Yes, I do." And she said, "Is there something that happens at church that can't happen in other places that makes you want to go to church every week?" And she said, the older woman said, I've come to know God through His Son Jesus, and I go to church because that's where I have dedicated time in my week to remember this relationship and to work on it. And as for whether I can meet God or that can happen in other places, yes, I know it can. But you know what happens to me in my week? I get distracted. And I get caught up in the week. And I think, the older woman said, I'm pretty sure that I miss almost all of the appointments God sets with me during the week. I just get too busy. I get too distracted. I get too watered down. And I come here every week to remind myself that that's the truth. That God is always trying to reach out to me, but yet I'm so busy I often miss God in the midst of that. And the woman said, "So you meet God every time you come to church?" And the woman said, No. But once every 8 times, I connect with God at church. I'm thinking if I preach one good sermon out of 8, I'm doing pretty good. I'd like a little better than that. 7 out of 8 I'm shooting for. So she said 1 out of 8 times I connect with God. And the woman said, well, then why do you go every week? And she said, because I'm never quite sure which one of those 8 weeks it's going to be. You never know when God is going to light on your heart. And I'm never going to know when you need me. You know, we live in the communication age, right? We text, we email, I tried to set up this overnight for Isaac, and I called and called and called, and the guy was waiting for an email. It's just the story of my life. But God calls us, and I was struck. This is the new part for this sermon. I was struck by the line in 2 Corinthians on how this transformation works. Let light shine out of darkness, who has shown in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. For we do not proclaim ourselves, we proclaim Jesus Christ as Lord, and ourselves as slaves for Jesus' sake. For it is God who said, let light shine out of darkness. That's what you are. You are light that shines out of darkness. That the world can be overwhelming, and we get stretched thin, and we get perpetually bombarded from all sides. Do you ever feel like that? Like the world is perpetually bombarding you from all sides. And this, if we do it right, is the place where we hold on to each other, we collectively take a deep breath, we meet our God, and we remember that the distractions of the week are not the ball game. But the relationship with God and God's love is the ball game. That God is waiting for you to have time in the craziness to be held. Does God not want to hold you? No, God wants to hold you desperately. Right, Claire? God, just like Grandma holds you, Claire, that's how God wants to hold you. See? I paid her big bucks to come in right then. That college is now paid for. Good to know. Hear that? We're holding it. But God sits and waits and waits and waits and prepares and prepares and prepares and says, when you're ready, I'm ready. And I don't know about you, but in my week, this is one of those times that I have for that. I'm up to 108 days in my journal. 108 days. Did I write every day in that journal? Have I done every day for 108 days? No. But I keep track of how many days I haven't and how many days I have. So I just keep it going, and I'm kind of longing for the 200th day, and the 500th day, and the 1000th day of me keeping track of this time. And I hit it more than I miss. And it takes me 3 minutes. And for me, it's a step towards that apostolic connection. That being in the feet of the apostles in the shoes. Thank you for 20. It's a community effort. Yeah. That's right. In the shoes of the Master and of those who follow him. And why? You know, I could be having the worst week of my life, and I can come here with you, and I smile. You'll notice. Watch me preside. I'm almost perpetually smiling because I'll think of Jake picking it up out of nowhere and making me look semi-good. As good as I can do today. I mean, I take for granted that there's only so much you're working with here, Jake. You know, you can be Picasso, and if you don't have paints, what can I tell you? But I smile at the little touches. You know, Anne had come in and grabbed my cheeks as she come through and said, "Are you still one piece after the pole plunge?" Yes, we are. We're all in one piece. You should have seen Emily. She was like, Emily, all 47 pounds of her, jumping into Lake Winona and freezing, coming out as an ice ball. And she wasn't really sure she wanted to do it, and then full throttle. And we're going to wrestle in a tournament in a couple weeks. And Emily said, I just want to go watch. So everybody else is going to wrestle and Emily's going to watch. So she gets out of the water, she says, is it too late to register me for that wrestling tournament? And I was like, yes. My girls are warriors. But God reaches out in all these different areas. And if I have aligned my soul, if I understand that the world sometimes can be a dark and cold place, but that I have a warm place, I have a place where I'm safe, I have a place where we together can tell the stories and challenge ourselves to continue transforming and being like together, that is amazingly precious. That is a holy time and a holy place. That is holy work, and God begs for that. And hopefully, if we do it right, it inspires us and shores us up for the rest of the week of distractions until we can come back together again. And we know that it's not every week that we get to come together. The group is never the same 2 weeks in a row, so it may be 2 or 3 weeks, but maybe just the memory of that place, of that holy place, of people who know your name and who care if you're here or not. Maybe that will inspire you through the thick and the thin and bring you back home so that you can be fed once more and be ready to go and do battle for the light. May you be transformed. And this Lent, the last Hallelujahs, the last Gloria, the last water in the baptistry, we now plunge our hands into the sand. For 6 weeks we tighten our belt. And we remember as a church that very few places take 6 weeks to do anything in our multicultural and instant nanotechnology world we live in. Holy Lent, we remember that we're ashes. To ashes we will return. We remember that we're in a relationship and that there are things worth trying to do better, trying to be sorry for, and trying to create more space in our heart despite the hurt so that God can heal us, God can use us, God can bless us, God can make us whole, and God can make us holy. May we have a holy Lent. May we be transformed on Transfiguration Sunday. And may God be in the middle of our hearts as we continue to dance with the God who loves us by the Son and Holy Spirit. Amen. I finally liked one. Everyone was a child.